Rush into Old Navy starting tomorrow. The entire store's on sale up to 50% off. Want to save even more? Redeem your super cash now at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Better hurry though, Sunday's the last day. Excludes clearance, gift cards, register lane items, jewelry, today and 2-day only deals.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. You are listening to Transform Your Life with Kellie and Lisa. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
Thought I lost you there for a second. I'm like, no, I was just talking to her.
It's summer vacation, and I had to remind my son about my radio show, so I had you on mute.
You know, we were talking before the show, and our topic in the write-out bag, I can't talk this morning, write-up on the show, the description, was talking about being raised to believe that having a lot of pride in yourself was wrong and boasting is wrong, and, you know, you put other people first in front of you. And we talked about this topic the other day on Facebook messaging, whatever we were doing. And it seems like there's a correlation, at least in my mind, and this is my own personal theory. You can agree with me or not. I really honestly don't care at this point, that all of the social backlash we're seeing, all of the people attacking other people and being hateful to other people and being mean to other people and being really, really, really terribly, terribly unkind, and that's the nicest family-friendly way I can describe what I'm talking about. I think we have to look at ourselves and the way a lot of people were raised, particularly if you grew up in the middle class or even lower class. You were often taught that you put other people before yourself, and you shouldn't brag. You know, bragging, even if it was, I know I won all kinds of science awards in school when I was a kid, and I was actually told, don't tell anybody about that. They'll think you're conceited. So I went through life thinking, well, God, accomplishments that I worked so hard for are something I should be ashamed of. And I think a lot of people grew up that way. So in my mind, people now who are acting out and who are spewing forth all of the hate and committing all of these horrible, horrible acts against humanity, I think maybe we need to look at how they were raised. I think maybe we need to look at, there's a whole group of people on the planet, not just in the States, but on the planet as a whole, in every, you know, quote-unquote civilized nation that was brought up that way. And I think after a while, people have just had enough. There's only so much being taken advantage of and being pushed down and being told you're nothing or being made to feel like you're nothing that people can take before the backlash happens. And I think that's what we're witnessing. What do you think, Lisa?
I think those are some very valid points. And, you know, there was a Facebook comment discussion from something you had posted about the idea of self-promotion and, you know, wouldn't you want to show the world what you're doing? And for me, it triggered the concept of joy. Being raised in a Christian home, the concept of joy is Jesus or spirit first, yourself last, and others in between. And that also one of the 7 deadly sins is vanity. So one thing we're not taught is the fine line between what is healthy bragging, if you will, and what is that other side where it's conceit and it's vanity.
Right.
And then why are we taught that we aren't important, that self-care isn't important? Because in all actuality, if we can't function, we can't help anybody else.
Right.
So that was something that definitely triggered for me, and I know I'm not the only one that was raised that way. So I think there's a part of the system that is flawed. Is there's
right.
no balance.
Oh,
It doesn't show the balance.
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, you brought up an interesting point, and in addition to 40-something messages or comments that one post got, I got easily 2 or 3 dozen private messages about it. And one of the things that people kept saying is, it is good to show people what you're doing. If you're looking at it from a standpoint of, here is what I'm doing, can I help you in what you're doing? Or sharing your own personal story with the belief that it might help someone else who reads it. That's all fine. But what many people pointed out is that you do get people who are, look at me, now look at me, now look at what I'm doing, now what do you think of me, how am I, look at me. And that's not what we're talking about here. That's, bordering on narcissism. But what I do think there is a healthy way of showing that you are proud of yourself without putting other people down. Nobody is saying here that we want you to go out into the world and say, yay, I got a raise at work today because I'm better than you are. No, that's not it at all. It's not about competing with other people. It's about you being the best you that you can be. The only person we're ultimately competing with is our own selves. I want to be a better me today than I was yesterday. That's all that should really matter. So I think I sort of felt like I was under attack, honestly, from that post. And for people listening who don't know what we're talking about, I posted a question asking, if you were written up in a magazine, would you share it? And if not, why not? Because I am a co-founder of a magazine, and numbers just came back from, social media, who shared, who didn't share, our website, who downloaded their promotion package, who didn't. And I was shocked that out of all the people we have featured in the magazine, only 7 took the time to download their own articles and to share the posts that were made just for them. And I wanted to know why. And I still am not sure why, but it created this conversation that we're having today about how people view promoting themselves and self-promotion and sharing with other people what their accomplishments are. And I can't say that I'm shocked. I really can't say that I'm shocked. But in my mind, I'm conflicted, because if you take the time to do something like a radio show or write a book or go on a TV show or be featured in a magazine, that takes some effort to do any of those things. Why would you not then tell people that you've done them? And I don't know, other than the comments that I got, they were all about, well, I don't want to look conceited. I don't want people to think that I think I'm better than they are. And I had dozens of those kinds of comments. So that's what we're talking about. And really, looking back, it made me look back at my own life and all those science awards. And to be honest, I received so much backlash about excelling in science when I was a kid that I stopped excelling at anything for a very long time. I went from being a straight A+ student. I would go home and cry and study all night if I got an A-. I was that kid. And I went from that to making C's because I no longer cared. Why should I bother to succeed? People were just going to shame me for it. It was something to be ashamed of. And when I thought about that, when I remembered the pain of that, all of a sudden, lights started flashing, the dots started connecting, and I realized that maybe, just maybe, a lot of the underlying currents of the social unrest we're seeing has its roots in other people who were me, who was that same kind of kid who was told, don't brag about yourself. So what, you did good. That don't tell anybody. They'll think you're conceited. And I think that's what this backlash is all about at its core, at its initial and originating factor. I think that's what the social backlash is about. So, yeah. I completely lost my train of thought.
No, you're fine. I first of all hope that put you in an uncomfortable situation with my response, because
no.
First of all, that was not my intention. But, when I look at others, I'm like, why wouldn't you want to do that? I guess I light coach people all of the time in certain situations, and, self-promotion is something that I see a lot of people who are in business for themselves don't do. And even if you graduated from college, or, you're getting ready to take a trip around the world for a year, I mean, there are things that it's not just business related that we're discussing today, but the concept for other people I think is absolutely crazy. But then when it comes back to myself, I'm like, oh, no, I can't do that. But I can tell people, guide people, push people to do it for themselves. So it's like, do as I say, not as I do, or don't in this case, So that I just wanted to throw that out there and make sure that I didn't offend you. But to kind of expand your the discussion about being shunned or shamed for your gift, I know back when I was in elementary school, middle school, all of that, being smart wasn't cool. Now smart is the new sexy, and we can tell our kids, dote on them for their achievements and whatnot. But be careful you're not raising an entitled generation, and that's a whole different discussion on this discussion as well. But, for me, it was not only was I not supposed to brag about myself, and I didn't. I was definitely a wallflower. I was bullied for my gift. Yes. Because it wasn't cool to be smart. It wasn't cool to wear glasses. It wasn't cool to be socially awkward and prefer to read as opposed to, listen to the latest whatever. I didn't even listen to rock and roll. That wasn't Elvis Presley or like that back in the day until almost the 90s. I was like 12 or 13 before I even listened to mainstream music. So like for me, it was who I wasn't acceptable either. So to add on to the idea that I'm not supposed to make others uncomfortable because of my gifts or my achievements, because we don't want to make anybody feel bad, that, it compounded. And so for me, I did the same thing. I hid and didn't allow myself my fullest potential with my grades.
Right. And looking back now, doesn't that make you a little bit angry?
It makes me sad.
Yeah.
It makes me, I tried to get over, every once in a while it still comes back up, but I tried to get over the anger that I had or have towards who treated me a certain way. Because if I can't let that go, then it's not going to, I'm only going to progress so far. And
exactly.
My gosh, that was 30 years ago. Why still hold on to something from 30 years ago? But when I think back on a lot of it, it makes me sad that I caved that way, and so trying to teach myself, because the caving has been a pattern.
Right.
I'm with a company, for example. I love what this company stands for. I love the charitable aspect of this company. I love the products with this company. but nobody knows that I'm with this company. I don't go out and run this business at all because I'm too embarrassed about somebody somewhere on the other side of the world who has a negative connotation against direct sales or MLM, or, I don't want to make my friends on Facebook feel awkward because they're seeing a couple of posts, throughout the day on this particular company or whatever. So even now, I'm still a wallflower. And I think I put this on a comment on your original post about why you wouldn't want to self-promote. And for me, I feel like that's why I keep bouncing and I keep jumping, and people probably think I'm flaky, but that's not it. It's because that is a part of who I am from years and years and years of conditioning. That I can go back to elementary school with that.
Right. And I think a lot of us do. I was just looking at some of the comments from this morning that I hadn't actually read yet. And, your sentiments are echoed again and again that it's the way people feel they were raised to be. One of them uses a term here. Let me see if I can find it really quick. We were raised to be quiet and sensitive, to sit in a corner until someone noticed us. So for me personally, sharing something in a magazine, which I probably would not have contributed to in the first place, is really out of my comfort zone. Perhaps I should grow past that. So that's kind of the same thing, is, it's sort of, don't look at me, But
right.
The other backlash that we were talking about before the show, and I want to get into a little bit here, because I do think that there's a tie-in here, too. You have people who have been kind of downtrodden for their entire lives, who have been told, you don't want to be noticed, you don't want to stand out, you don't want to brag. And then you've got this whole host of these motivational, positive speaker people who are saying, shine your light, and think positive and happy thoughts and all of this kind of stuff. So I think if you're one of those people, and I was one of those people, that was kind of downtrodden from, don't stand out, you have gifts, don't tell anybody, to all of a sudden be exposed to positive thinking posts, positive thinking books, positive thinking movies, positive thinking, positive thinkers, and on and on and on. I've seen a little bit of backlash towards that over especially the last year, but I think it really started a couple of years ago. And I want to talk about that today too, because I know you've mentioned that too. Sometimes that is in itself, you can see so much beating people over the head with positive thinking that it becomes a negative thing rather than an uplifting thing, at least in my experience and from what I've heard from other people I've talked to about this. It really can become an overwhelming thing. And one person I spoke with recently said, I went through my entire life trying to hide and trying to fit in and wishing I was just whatever normal was. And then I'm out in the workforce, and my employer, because she works for a high-tech company, so they're really new agey. I'll use that. If I said more, you'd know who I was talking about. And they really have these positive thinking posters, and they have a positive thinking library where it contains only books written by motivational and positive teachers and speakers.
Wow.
And they actually are given a reading list when they start working for this company.
Wow.
And she said, you take someone who is the shy wallflower, you're brilliant but don't tell anyone. Oh, girls aren't supposed to be smart. You'll never get a husband if you're smart. That kind of mentality, the way this young woman was raised. And then you put her into this culture of shine your light, shine, 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 to brighter, brighter, bigger, bigger. And she is having an emotional crisis. She was in full crisis mode when I spoke to her the other day, because now she's no idea how she's supposed to be or who she's supposed to be or what she's supposed to be. And I think we need to maybe not tone down all of the positive thinking stuff, but I think we have reached a point where some of the people, and I will not name names even though, I'm seeing faces flash in front of my eyes, some of these motivational speakers and these quote-unquote self-proclaimed gurus are now beating people over the head with, positive thinking. And I don't think that's very positive. It's kind of like there was, I can't remember now who it was, but there was an athlete who was recently talking about being on the verge of child abuse his entire childhood because he exhibited a certain gift in athleticism. And because of that, his parents pushed him and wouldn't allow him to be a kid, and all he could do was homework and in practice. And he felt like he was deprived of a life. Another example of that ended very, very tragically was Michael Jackson. If you've ever seen any of the documentaries around his childhood, he was, pretty much, you will sing, you will dance, you will sing, you will dance. And what are you doing watching TV? Stop watching that. Stop reading. Put that book down. You need to sing. You need to dance. And that's kind of what I feel from a lot of people who are talking about these very motivational, high-energy kind of speakers. They're looking at it as almost torturous at this point. People know you need to find a better feeling thought at this point. People know that your thoughts create your reality. People know all of that now. I've talked to old farmers recently in the area that I live in, and people you would never think would be into any of the positive thinking stuff. And even they know, you want to have a good day, decide in the morning you're going to have a good day. So I think
that comes from a Bible verse.
Well, yes.
And, so it's a different spin on what a lot of people have been brought up on. It takes the religious aspect out of it. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead.
But
no, that was perfect.
I see it, and for me, it is overwhelmed. It's I have a lot of very wonderful people on my Facebook page, or that on my friends list, and then I have people who are not in the energy industry, if you will, the light workers and whatnot. And I love to watch them rant on Facebook or to express that they've had a crappy day and they're going home and drinking a bottle or two of wine. I love to see that. Then there's the flip side of the wonderful people that I have on my friends list who are empowerment or inspirational or motivational or light workers and whatnot. And it's always positivity, and I love that they're in that place. But I also feel like I'm kind of caught in the middle because I'm human, and I can think positive all day long, but in the middle of a moment, I want to have a not-so-positive moment. Right. So it's overwhelming, and, then I'm getting, do this program, do that program, follow this, whatever, and I'm just like, so I don't do a lot because I give me a day. Like, tell me what I should do at 5 o'clock in the morning. Do I wake up and then, I say my gratitude to the universe for allowing me to wake back up, and, and then then I do 15 minutes of meditation and then some yoga, and then I meditate on my vision. Like, what, you know, give a little bit more specifications, because it's so overwhelming. It really, really is overwhelming, and I completely understand why your friend was having an emotional crisis. Because I know deep down inside of me, I want to start a community garden and I want to be out in nature all of the time. But in reality, that's not happening for me right now. And your thoughts are things, and you shape your reality. But I can only live in fantasy for so long. I can only live in that vision board for so long. And yes, I'm supposed to visualize my house in a field in the middle of the mountains with a beautiful stream, you know, bubbling beside it. But my reality is I'm still in the city. So it's overwhelming. And then when you see that things aren't happening, and then you start thinking you're crazy because you're living in this alternate universe and you're constantly like futuristically thinking and whatnot, I can totally understand why that's overwhelming for her, particularly when being raised with, I love how you threw in there, girls aren't supposed to be smart. Girls shouldn't be smarter than boys. If you want a man, you shouldn't be smarter than him. You know, hide your brains and twirl your hair around your finger and put on this cute little dimply smile instead of, you know, having an intelligent discussion or whatever. Children should be seen and not heard. We were sat at different tables. We weren't allowed to express our opinion or even half the time our personality because it was too overwhelming for our parents and you know, that situation. So yeah, I can see why she's overwhelmed or having an emotional crisis, because that is a complete culture shock for her.
Well, it is, and she is a recent college graduate. This is her first experience in the quote-unquote real work world. So for her, it's really, really overwhelming, and she's fighting a number of battles that, you know, she doesn't like to talk about. Her father is battling cancer right now. You know, her grandmother recently passed away. I mean, this young woman, and she's I don't know, she's probably 23, 24 maybe. She's already dealing with a lot, and then to be dealing with all of that and then wanting to do well in a new job, and then to walk into, you know, Mary Poppinsville, as she calls it. It's kind of, it's bad. But you hit on something there, too, that I want to talk about a little bit. It's we have to give ourselves those moments. You know, it's not about burying your emotions. It's about looking at them as an observer and asking yourself questions. Why am I feeling this way right now? Is this the way I want to feel right now? No? Okay, well then how can I feel better? But you have to feel it to be able to let it go. Because if you go through life ignoring your emotions or trying to not feel them, eventually, I promise you, I can tell you it's true. It's happened to me. Eventually, they're all going to come out, and it's going to come out in a very negative way, and it's going to come out in a very unexpected way, and it's probably going to scare people around you because all of a sudden you're going to go into a deep, dark, depressive tailspin, and people aren't going to understand it. And I've been there, I've done that. I can tell you it's a lot easier if when you're feeling something, you allow yourself to feel it, and then you can let it go. So it's certainly not about burying your emotions. And I think a lot of times people look at positive posts about, you know, your thoughts are your reality and think positive, and they think that means I'm never supposed to have a bad moment. And that's not true at all. You have to let yourself have those bad moments. You let yourself laugh, you need to let yourself cry. And one of my teachers years and years and years ago now said that to me when I was I had gone into a huge tailspin. It was ugly. It was a very ugly, dark period of my life. And she told me, she says, hey, you let yourself laugh, don't you? You out with your friends, you don't make yourself not laugh. Well, of course not. Then why would you make yourself not cry? Why would you deprive yourself of the full range of human emotions? They're part of the human experience. Now, I'm not saying pack a bag, take it there, unpack, live there forever. But you have to let yourself have that experience so that you can let it go. And I think a lot of people have gone through their lives not letting themselves have those experiences, not letting themselves feel. And then all of a sudden, you know, they snap and people are going, how'd that happen? Whoa, never saw that coming. So, yeah, I just wanted to expand a little bit on that because you're absolutely right. You have to give yourself that moment. And, you know, if it's you're giving yourself a moment and you go online and you see something positive and you think, oh, that just makes me want to stab the computer, then maybe that's not the right site for you to be looking at that moment.
Right.
You know, people don't realize, too, and you mentioned this, too, about meditate for 15 minutes and do gratitude and do yoga and all. You can do all those at the same time. You really can. You know, gardening is my meditation these days. During the winter, I do sit on a cushion in my screened-in porch room, and I do actually meditate. During the spring and summer and fall, I literally go outside and garden, and that is my meditation. A meditation can be working out. A meditation can be hiking. A meditation can be driving. You know, I don't encourage people to drive while they're letting their mind wander because that can be dangerous. But any activity you do that lets you be completely in the moment and you lose track of time and space, that's a meditation. You know, so it doesn't have to take a lot of time. A friend of mine has shown me recently what she calls garden yoga. And she actually uses yoga in her gardening, which I have not tried yet, but it looks kind of funny. I might have to give that a go, just for.
You might have to send me the link on that because that sounds interesting.
I know, doesn't it? And I watched her, and it's just so funny. I mean, and you know, she literally did fall over one time because she was laughing so hard trying to pose and garden at the same time, but. You know, which could be good too. So you know, it's all about where you put your focus, I think. You know, and one of the things that I've gone through recently, and I put it on the show description, so I want to talk about it since we have, you know, some time left, is customer service. Because if you are a customer service agent, you know going to work in the morning, people are going to yell at you at least a good part of the day. What does that do to your self-esteem? I don't have the stats in front of me, but I'm sure there's a really high turnover rate. But at one time, I actually taught customer service to different companies. And one of the things that we talked about is how to diffuse a situation. First responders go through this training too. How do you diffuse a situation? If you've got someone who is upset already when you answer the phone and you know your company's phone system, so you know this person has already spent probably 2 or 3 minutes punching 1 to press this number. If you have this problem, press this. Press that problem for this and this and the other one. And for English, press, 74. You already know they're frustrated by the time they get to a live person. Make sure you smile when you answer the phone. It sounds really silly, but it works. It changes the tone of your voice. And if someone is telling you, I've already talked to that person, and you make this suggestion and you say, and they tell you, well, I've already done that too, then don't just tell them, well, those are your only options. You need to get them to someone who can help them. Because, and I'll share my personal story, on Monday this week, I went to answer my cell phone, So Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge, by the way, for anyone listening, because Samsung has had problems with their phones. And it was so hot when I picked it up, it burnt my hand. It burnt my hand, and it caused me to drop the phone. Okay, so now my phone is very, very hot, and I actually answered it with an oven mitt. I picked it up off the floor with an oven mitt. And there is a corner of the phone now that is cracked where it hit my concrete floor. I finished that call, believe it or not. The phone actually worked through that call. And then I hung up the phone, and I called my carrier, Verizon, and I said, hey, this is what has just happened. My phone is overheating. It's still under warranty. What do I do? And they said, well, okay, we can replace it as long as it's not damaged. And I said, well, it's damaged now because I just dropped it on my concrete floor and there is a crack now. Well, then you're going to have to file an insurance claim. Even though it overheated and burnt my hand, yes, okay, fine. So I called the insurance company. And the insurance company says, what happened? And I said, I went to answer my phone. It was very hot. It burned my hand. I dropped the phone. Now it's cracked. Now Verizon is telling me it's damaged, so they won't replace it, so you have to, I have to file a claim. And they said, well, we're not going to replace that. We're going to deny that claim because it was overheating and it burnt your hand, which is why it was dropped, which is why it's damaged. So we can't help you. So I call Verizon back. And I get someone on the phone at Verizon who tells me the same thing. And I said, you don't understand. I've already done that. And he says, well, I'm sorry. That's your only option. And I said, let me talk to your supervisor. And he said, well, there's not anybody available right now. They'll have to call you later. And he hung up on me. So then I called Samsung because they manufactured the phone. And for 4 hours, I spent on the phone with Samsung, being passed from this person to that person to this person to the other person, all to no avail. They do not stand behind their products. They will not do it. They said, call Verizon. So I called Verizon back, and I finally got a supervisor. They bumped me up to another tier. Who knew Verizon had tiers? I do now. They have 4 of them. And on tier 2, I got someone who said, wow, that should not be happening to you. Let me see what I can do. And I said, yay. And he came back and he says, I'm really sorry. We can send you a replacement and you can return that phone. No, first he told me you have to drive to a corporate store, which for where I live is 90 miles one way. And then they can test the phone, and then if it's not damaged, they will send in a voucher, and then you can get your phone in 3 to 5 days. And I said, so you're telling me I drive 90 miles one day, or one way, it's 180 miles, that's half my day, and I take this phone in, and they're going to look at it and give me a voucher, and they're going to keep this phone, and I'm not going to have a phone at all, and in 3 to 5 days you'll decide whether or not I get a new one. And he says, oh, it wouldn't be a new one, it would be a reconditioned phone. And I said, well, that's not acceptable at all. And he said, well, those are your only options. I can call the insurance company for you. And I said, well, I've already tried that. He says, no, stay on the line with me. Maybe they'll do something different for someone calling from Verizon. So I spent another 45 minutes on the phone listening to him have the same conversation with Assurant Insurance that I had already had. And then he comes back on the phone and he says, well, let's try Samsung. So he has the same exact conversation with Samsung that I had. By this time, it is 8 hours. I've spent 8 hours now trying to get someone to listen to me. So finally, he says he will have his supervisor call me the next day, which would have been yesterday, Tuesday. So I'm angry. I'm really angry. I'm super angry. So I go online and I start making some posts. And I find somebody who says, call the FCC, file a complaint. So I filed an FCC complaint. So I called a Better Business Bureau complaint. I filed a Consumer Reports complaint. I filed all these complaints. And all of a sudden, attorneys started contacting me saying, did you take a picture of your burnt hand? So now I'm part of a class action lawsuit because many, many, many hundreds of people have had the same problem and the same runaround. But a funny thing happened this morning. They did not call me yesterday. I actually called them 3 times and got nowhere, got the runaround again. But this morning, a funny thing happened. I get a call from a lovely, very, very apologetic woman at Verizon's corporate office, level 4, tier 4, sorry. And she says, I am so, so sorry. This is not the way we're supposed to be treating our customers. I will get this taken care of for you. And I said, really? Why now? Why, after 2 days of me posting on social media, talking to attorneys, filing complaints, why now? And she said, well, to be honest with you, the FCC has just called my office about your complaint. So she says she's sending me a phone, and she says everything will be fine, and I won't be held responsible for damage to a phone that burnt my hand and I dropped it. But the only reason that happened is because they were threatened by the FCC, which in my mind is another reason that so many of us, because 3 years ago, I would just be without a phone. I would just be sitting here going, oh, wow, there's nothing I can do. Who I am today is very different, and I fought for this new phone, which I don't have yet, and I hope I will get. But why should we as consumers have to fight? Why should it come to that extreme? Why should the first, second, or third, or fifth person I spoke with at any of those companies not said, you know what, I understand your concern. We will take care of this. How many people, especially in the United States, because we are notorious for horrible customer service, how many people have had a similar experience, and how many times have they had it? And how many times would it take for someone to have those similar experiences before they flipped out and went over the edge? I think that's at the core of society's problems today. We have been demoted to being some business's bottom line. That's all people are looked at now. And when that happens to enough people enough times, you get a social revolt, and that's kind of what we're on the verge of now. So I know I've been talking for a long time, and nobody probably really cares about my cell phone problems, but the concept of the way people have been treated by this corporate culture of the corporation is all that matters, and the corporation and making a profit is all that matters, I think that has a direct impact on how people are behaving to each other. What do you think?
Is it my turn? No, I'm kidding.
Yes. I said, what do you think, Lisa?
No, that
Sorry.
was a great story. And no. It was a great story. Unfortunately, I hate that happened to you. I saw all of your frustration on Facebook, and I know I've been in the same, well, not exactly the same, but, similar situations where really when it comes down to losing me as a customer, my $200 a month isn't really doing a whole lot to that company's bottom line. But when you add tens of thousands of people, that's where the big impact is made. And so the idea that that poor, miserable person making $10 to $12 an hour answering the phone, knowing that there's a 90% chance that the person on the other end of it is going to be hateful and miserable and angry because of a bad experience or frustration of having been on the phone for 4 hours. I've been in that situation before where there still wasn't resolved. It's like, seriously, this is ridiculous. In fact, I went through that with the government, so I can't sue them, but it was crazy, going through all these hoops and whatnot. And that person on the other end of the phone, who isn't really making a whole lot of money unless they're at that tier 4 level like you were talking about, it's sad for everyone all around.
Yes.
Because the amount of money, I wouldn't want to put up with people's crap either. And I know that I'm supposed to because it's my job, but I don't know that $10 an hour is worth having somebody treat me a certain way, even though I'm supposed to answer the phone with a smile. I don't know. Like, that's a tough call. So, yeah, I don't know if that had any bearing to our conversation, but I can completely, anyway. I think it's just gotten so big and so out of control with corporations, and we are their bottom line. But, the people who are way down the channels, I don't know.
Well, one of the things, especially with Verizon and with Samsung, that I encountered. Now, I have to say, Asurion, even though they denied the claim because it was a manufacturer defect is what caused it, at least I got immediately to a person who could help me. But with Verizon especially, and with Samsung, the bottom tier people have no ability to do anything other than sell you a phone or change your current package. That's all they can do. And if you don't know that, then you're wasting a lot of time explaining your situation to them. And that's what caused me a lot of time initially, was not realizing these people couldn't do anything. And when you ask for a supervisor, they should immediately say, hold on, let me get you someone who can help you. But that's not what they're trained to do. They're trained to say, well, tell me what's going on, and we'll see. And they waste, another half hour. And in my case, when I totaled it all up, since Monday at 11:30 in the morning when this happened to this morning when I actually got someone who says they're sending me out a new phone, I spent 17 hours working on this issue. Now, what's my time worth an hour? Yeah.
Right.
So it's really in my mind, it shows that corporations are only concerned about the bottom line at this point. And when you have a whole bunch of people who were raised to not raise their voice, to just roll with the punches, to look at the bright side, or this too shall pass, or all of those other wonderful little things we were raised with, it's a bad combination. And what I'm seeing in the news, on social media because I don't watch TV anymore, but what I'm seeing in society is a lot of angry people. And I am willing to bet that those really angry people have spent the bulk of their life being taken advantage of and run over and just rolling with the punches and just letting things go. And, that just happens. Life just happens. Sometimes it just happens. You're not one of those people that are lucky. You're an unlucky person. I think that's what we're seeing. I really do think that's what we're seeing, because I know how my experience impacted me. And I've spent the last 30 years almost of my life studying psychology and positive thinking and the impact of how different emotions affect us. So if my experience affected me this way, to the point where I was filing complaints, to the point where I was on social media talking about it, to the point where I am on this radio show now talking about it, then you've got to think it's affected other people much, much, much worse. I feel very fortunate that I have these outlets. I feel very fortunate that I am articulate enough to be able to go online and explain in a complaint form exactly what I have encountered. A lot of people may not have those options. They don't have radio shows. They don't have computers, so they can't go online and file complaints. And it's very difficult to find any consumer protection, anything, without a computer. So, yeah, I understand the frustration. I understand the anger completely. And, before this happened to me, I would have said, I don't know why those people are so angry. I get it. I get why people are angry. It's been the elite few and the corporations and the almighty dollar for far too long. And I hope that the social backlash I see brewing happens in a constructive, positive way rather than a negative, unfortunate way. And all I've seen so far is negativity. But, I think we can change things. I think it's going to take people standing up, saying, you know what, I've been quiet for too long. I've been that wallflower for too long. It's time things change, and it starts with me. So that is my soapbox.
It was a good soapbox. I think we're seeing that shift.
Huh?
I think we're seeing that shift.
I hope so.
And, more people are starting to speak out for the disadvantaged, and if somebody speaks against in a negative way, social media is such a nightmare because now we have access to all of the fill-in-the-blank opinions that are opinions and aren't, usually backed by facts. When it's, I'm not saying everybody does that, when it's more along the line of ignorance or hate, there's not a whole lot of fact backing of statements that are made and whatnot. I'm starting to see more and more. Maybe I'm starting to see it more and more because I'm looking for it, of the people who are willing to speak out and create change. So lately I've been posting on Facebook at least once a day. I'm going out there and posting information for people who may need to have help with food for their children this summer. I'm posting from different sources, so it's not just one random post, that the government has a program, and you can text the 877-877, text the word food, and it'll give you a list of schools in your area. It'll be more comprehensive on the 16th of June, I believe, is the final date, but where you can get a list of schools in your area that are serving breakfast, lunch, and sometimes even dinner. And because for me, no child should go hungry. I don't care how you feel about adults and how, what your opinion of their wage earning ability is, and no child should starve because of a situation that is beyond their control. And that's something that I'm taking a little more personally. And I know that other people are standing up to the bullies, the hatred, the ignorance, and fighting for people who, more so now, and maybe like I said, I'm looking for it, but fighting it, being more outspoken against people who carry certain mentalities.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to stand up. I do see it more and more. I do hope that it continues, but I think we need to be mindful to not stoop to the level of other people. Just because someone is a bully doesn't mean we should bully them.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to make corporations the bad guy. I'm saying that we need to change the way what we value in society, and people truly are more important than corporations. That doesn't mean I want people to go out and, wage war against corporations. It just means we need to really take a step back and look at the way we are allowing things to proceed in society, and I think that's why people are so angry.
Yeah.
But, we need to take care of each other better. We need to do a lot better at taking care of each other, actually. And, feeding hungry kids, who in the world would think that someone would be against that, and yet I know they are.
Right.
So what are we valuing, people? That's the question.
That's a
what are we
question.
valuing?
It's a great question to leave the show with.
Yep, it is. So thank you guys for listening. We are going to wrap the show now. Thanks always for sharing the show, for talking about the show, and we will see you next time.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Rush into Old Navy starting tomorrow. The entire store's on sale up to 50% off. Want to save even more? Redeem your super cash now at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Better hurry though, Sunday's the last day. Excludes clearance, gift cards, register lane items, jewelry, today and 2-day only deals. Rush into Old Navy starting tomorrow. The entire store's on sale up to 50% off. Want to save even more? Redeem your super cash now at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Better hurry though, Sunday's the last day. Excludes clearance, gift cards, register lane items, jewelry, today and 2-day only deals.